Most people believed the most serious allegations surrounding Ellen had already come out. But new information has now surfaced that has left many stunned at a deep level, with reports claiming that Ellen was not only connected to Jeffrey Epstein's so-called Pizzagate circle, but was also linked to the Wayfair conspiracy and even the death of a former girlfriend separate from Anne Heche.
In business, nothing is coincidental, or you would be hearing who's losing money. In all of these situations, it's only the artist that's losing. Somebody makes big money.
Brad Garrett, who had been closely connected to Ellen DeGeneres and her show for years, spoke out in a way that caught many people off guard, and he did not soften his words at all, as he claimed that the way Ellen treated people behind the scenes was never really hidden and was something many in the industry were already aware of. And that is when the situation began to feel different, because for a long time, Ellen had been known as the cheerful and kind host on television, yet suddenly that public image started to break apart.
Look at Ed, and she would laugh, because I was hoping she was going to say, Ed, you can't be yelling at crew this way. You can't be yelling at people this way. She laughed, and she said, every production needs their dog.
Meaning
Ed is her dog.
Like her attack dog.
Her attack dog. So therefore she doesn't need to do that. He took the role of being the attack dog, that she didn't have to now be the attack dog. So she didn't have to yell.
So when Ellen says she's not aware of this environment, you don't think that rings true?
It's a lie.
Muscat won 2 daytime Emmys with the show. She was let go in 2004.
As a host, she's amazing. As a host. But as a boss, and someone who's behind the scenes running the show, she's a different person. She's not the person people see.
Back in 2020, reports started to surface revealing what it was actually like behind the scenes of the Ellen DeGeneres show, as staff members began speaking out about a toxic work environment where some claimed they were treated poorly, while others pointed to serious issues in the way everything was managed and handled.
Expect a lot when you go to meet like your idol, and then when you get disappointed, it's like such a letdown.
In 2018, Dana DiMatteo flew from Chicago to Los Angeles and was delighted to be picked out of the audience to have some fun with Ellen. But then she says she was shocked when she was briefed on the comedy bit by the producers.
They tell you, you can't be smarter, funnier than Ellen. She's the comedian and the star, not you.
Ellen responded by sending a letter to her team where she explained that she was not aware of everything happening behind the scenes and admitted she should have handled things better, while also promising that changes would be made, although not everyone was convinced by her response, as Ellen DeGeneres later addressed the workplace mistreatment reports more publicly by sharing her reaction to the allegations from both current and former employees and outlining steps being taken to improve the company culture, stating that she was disappointed after learning about the claims in a BuzzFeed article and explaining that as the show grew significantly over the years, she had relied more on others to carry out tasks the way she expected, but she also admitted that clearly some people did not meet those expectations.
Think you achieve anything by bullying people?
In a statement to ET, Warner Brothers, the studio behind Ellen's show, claims they have interviewed dozens of current and former employees in the wake of these allegations. They say that during their investigation, it was revealed that there were some deficiencies related to the show's day-to-day management.
Behind the scenes, the situation was reportedly becoming more serious as claims began to surface that some producers on the show were accused of major misconduct, with names such as Kevin Lemon and Ed Glavin being brought up alongside allegations of inappropriate behavior.
Allegations this morning of rampant misconduct and harassment in the workplace. The new accusations reported by BuzzFeed News come just 2 weeks after another article on the site detailing a racist and toxic work environment. DeGeneres responded Thursday before the new article was published, apologizing and taking responsibility for what happens at the show. Warner Media is also conducting its own internal investigation. Jamie Yukis has more on the allegations.
At the same time, not everyone spoke out against Ellen, as Scooter Braun publicly defended her and described her as kind and supportive. But by that point, the damage had already been done, and what was once one of the most loved shows on television was now surrounded by controversy as the conversation kept growing and more people continued to speak up, causing the story to expand further, and little by little cracks started to show in the image Ellen had carefully built. But it was in 2022, following the death of her ex-girlfriend Anne Heche, that everything she had built seemed to fully collapse.
So former employees who worked on the Ellen Show told me that they experienced a range of harassment and misconduct and witnessed a range of it, from explicit comments to behavior and inappropriate, unwanted advances.
It appears to be true that Ellen and Ann had little to no contact after their split, which is something Ann herself mentioned to Entertainment Tonight a few years earlier.
She said a head writer came up to her at a party and said, "Oh, I only know the names of the white people who work here."
On August 5th, 2022, at around 10:00 a.m., Ann was seen at a store called Glass Hair where she purchased a bright red wig. And the owner later said the interaction stood out not because she seemed unusual, but because she did not, as he described her, as polite, calm, and fully aware, with no slurred speech or visible signs of intoxication, which later became an important detail. And after leaving the store, Ann arrived at what has been described as a garage or storage facility around 10:30 a.m., which is...
I've spoken to nearly 50 former employees who worked on The Ellen Show. All of them say they found what their experience was behind the scenes to be in contrast to what the show makes a profit off of and what Ellen DeGeneres has built an entire brand off of, which is the Be Kind message.
And this is where a key idea begins to surface, as some believe that by this point Ann may not have been fully in control of the car anymore, which has not been confirmed but continues to come up as the timeline moves forward. And about 30 minutes later, a Ring doorbell camera reportedly captured her blue Mini Cooper speeding through a quiet neighborhood in Los Angeles at an estimated 70 to 90 miles per hour, which is extremely fast for a residential street. And shortly after that, the car crashed directly into a house in the Mar Vista area with a massive impact. Yet Ann survived, and witnesses said she was conscious as neighbors rushed over, spoke to her, and asked if she was alive, talking, and aware. But once the news media and paramedics arrived, the situation appeared to take a completely different turn.
Have you spoken to Ann Hesh at all since her accident?
Have not.
Do you want to...
We're not in touch with each other, so I wouldn't know.
There was no clear explanation released by the police, and no confirmed cause was ever given. And eventually the case was simply closed without a final answer, which led many people to start looking deeper, not only into the crash itself, but also into Ann's past relationship with Ellen DeGeneres, as by the late 1990s, Ann had entered a relationship with Ellen that drew significant public attention and controversy, and their appearances together led to backlash within Hollywood, with reports suggesting they were excluded from certain events.
Range of harassment and misconduct, and witnessed a range of it, from explicit comments to behavior and inappropriate, unwanted advances.
The relationship lasted until 2000, and for many years the details of their breakup remained mostly private. But much later, Ann revealed something that shocked many people when she described Ellen as greedy and even somewhat cruel. And in one moment, she recalled telling Ellen that she needed real support, friendship, and something genuine in her life. But according to Ann, Ellen responded in a way that suggested she did not want to be with someone who needed those things.
She said a head writer came up to her at a party and said, "Oh, I only know the names of the white people who work here."
But Ann's life continued to be filled with unexpected turns and major changes. And during that period, she went on to marry cameraman Coley LaFoon, with the two appearing deeply in love. And although she met him while working on a documentary connected to Ellen, she maintained that he had nothing to do with the end of her previous relationship.
Ellen and I haven't spoken in years, and in a relationship, and I think many of us have them, you come to a fork in the road. What do you want, and what do I want? And those goals, that intent in life, is determined by the individual. And her intent and my intent were different, and that's why we separated.
At the same time, after her passing, questions surrounding her history with Ellen DeGeneres never fully disappeared, as for years both of them had remained mostly quiet about their relationship, with Ellen rarely speaking on it even decades later, and saying she did not understand why Ann Heche ended things, while Ann also avoided sharing detailed explanations for a long time.
No, out of the car. No, out of the car. Out of the car.
I'm out of here.
Roxanne later appeared on a podcast called Better Together, where she opened up more than she had before. And in one episode, she seemed visibly uncomfortable, appearing shaky and nervous as she said something that drew a lot of attention, explaining that she felt like she could not fully escape Ellen and that there was a constant sense of pressure even years later. And she went on to add that once Ellen had moved away, she finally felt like she could breathe.
Traffic. This is a very busy street and plowed straight into this home right here and was trapped so deep inside that the house and the car caught fire and she wasn't able to be rescued for 45 minutes. Most disturbing part of this case is aerial helicopter footage showed Anne Heche being put onto a stretcher. You can see a body in some type of bag on a stretcher being wheeled into the back of an ambulance when all of a sudden the zipper breaks open and you see Anne Heche emerge suddenly out of this body bag, what looks like a body bag, and prop herself up as if she's trying to get off the stretcher or get out of the bag. They push her back down and she's put into the back of the ambulance. If you look at this footage, which is still on YouTube, comment section is ablaze with all kinds of different conspiracy theories about what that truly meant. Some people in the comments saying she came back to life, while others saying she wasn't in a body bag, it was a burn protection bag. Either way, it's one of the most unsettling clips I have ever seen. Anne was rushed to the hospital after that clip, placed in a coma, sadly never woke up. Days later, she was sadly declared brain dead from an anoxic brain injury. Her death ruled an accident by smoke inhalation and burns. But even with her death being ruled an accident, things still don't make sense and there are a ton of unanswered questions. What was the alcohol bottle doing in her car if she wasn't intoxicated and it wasn't drugs? Why was she driving at such a high rate of speed as if she was running away from something?
Another angle that brought Ellen DeGeneres back into the spotlight came from a controversy that had already spread widely online years earlier, involving the Pizzagate theory and a claimed connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
Ellen bashing, I am here to speak the truth about a time that happened that's important to know.
Okay. Did you ever try to reach out and make peace with Ellen?
You know, every day of my life with her was reaching out to her to make peace. I think it was a very difficult thing for her to trust that I was a woman who could fall in love with a woman without being gay. And I think that was a lot to process. So I tried to make that process as simple as possible by quitting Hollywood, moving to Ojai, growing gardens, starting to write and direct, which I did with her and Sharon Stone, a movie of all things called Misconception. And nothing would satisfy her soul.
Rumors Ellen was far from nice were out there for years. What was your reaction to the toxic workplace controversy?
I felt that it was in the hands of the people who needed to speak their truth. I hadn't spoken to Ellen in years, and I feel that the stories that need to be listened to are being told.
Did the stuff about her being emotionally abusive to her staff ring true to you?
Emotionally abusive is a container for our actions that we've not healed. And unfortunately, the environment was something that I understood.
When did you know you needed to break things off with Ellen?
I think it was a slow roll when you come to understand the truth of another. I wanted desperately to have that relationship be the love of my life. That was my Cinderella story. What happened was that I was, through the circumstances, shut out from things that I cared about. And in order to make her feel that she was being loved, I would erase those things from my path, such as acting, and replace them with things that I thought would give her a foundation. As we got further and further away from me being able to be in public the way that would please, I began getting further and further away from my friends and my friendships. And one of the things that concerned me very much was that I was beginning to feel shut off and shut down and shut away. And if this answers the question, when I told Ellen that I needed to have friends, she said she did not want to have a girlfriend that needed that. And that is the day I left.
6. Do you think that could actually be true? And if so, how much do you believe Ellen DeGeneres might be keeping hidden? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
Yeah, by the way, I hear voices. You never did that.
No. I was very afraid of what people would think of me. Very afraid.
Yeah, they'd think you're crazy.
Absolutely.
The therapist would think you're crazy.
Sure.
Are you on medication today?
No.
Do you still have moments when God speaks to you?
No.
Do you still talk in another language?
Oh, no.
You are all...
I'm all here.
You're all here.
Oh, yes.
But H continues to be full of surprises and transformations. This past weekend, she got married to cameraman Coley LaFoon. They seem to be wildly in love. She met Coley while making a documentary about Ellen, but she insists he had nothing to do with their breakup. Was Coley at all worried about your sexuality? Here he'd been seeing you with Ellen.
He's an extraordinary guy. He's one of the few people I've ever met who actually embraces the same notion about sexuality that I do. Which is that you love who you love. You fall in love with a person, not a sex. And he was not threatened by it at all because he understood that I could love a woman.
Do you think you could love a woman again?
Well, hopefully I won't, because I plan to be with Coley for the rest of my life. Although people asked me this question when I was with Ellen. Well, hypothetically, if you broke up, who would you be with, a man or a woman? And I said, I can't answer that question.
When people ask you, well, I'll ask you, do you consider yourself bisexual?
I think that's a comfortable label. I do not label myself bisexual, nor do I label myself straight or gay.
Marriage. 1 year after this breakdown, 1 year after Ellen. Why so soon?
I don't think there's any other explanation except that it felt right. I want to start a family. Coley wants to start a family.
At the same time, following her death, questions about her past with Ellen never really went away. For years, both of them stayed mostly silent about their relationship. Ellen rarely spoke about it, even decades later, saying she didn't know why Anne ended things. Anne also avoided going into detail, at least for a long time.
So why did you break up with Ellen?
Well, I think you know the answer to that question. I think we could probably whittle it down to one thing. If we live in loving kindness, and that is my destination and my dream for us all, I would say that was not her goal.
But that was her banner, which she led with.
Listen, when you want to steal somebody else's language, the problem is you hit a wall. Because the language is enough to drive you forth. Its purposing was enough to give her power. And the reality is, if you are not on a conscious conversation and communication with the universe and its truth, you hit a wall because you can only get furthered if your intelligence and your heart meet. And unfortunately, that she did not greet.
So basically what you're saying is you can only keep up the gig for so long.
I didn't know what, as I always call God, your grandpa, Kiki. I don't know Kiki's timing. But you face what you face in the mirror every single day. And unfortunately, it's just like I say in my first book, you don't get 2 cups of insanity in and get to take 1 cup out. You meet your maker.
Okay. Well, that was a riddle, I gotta say.
Well, God is a riddle. You're gonna have to start getting used to me now.
Anne appeared on a podcast called Better Together, where she spoke more openly. In one episode, she seemed visibly uneasy, shaking, nervous, and said something that caught people's attention. She described feeling like she couldn't escape Ellen, like there was this constant pressure even years later. Then she added something else. Once Ellen had moved away, she finally felt like she could breathe again.
Hey, I'm getting to the Ellen moment of my understanding in pop
we're
culture.
Talking about Ellen?
Yes, apparently she has gone off to Africa to join her gorillas in a peaceful retreat. So now, here's the thing about that.
Well, you know her show is off. Do you know that much, PopCulture?
I did know, but what I'm feeling is that finally she's enough away that I'm starting to be able to breathe again.
Really?
It's like it's like fresh air a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I think that's another show. But I have to say, there is a moment that I feel like, well, you know what I feel like with Ellen in Africa? I feel like a little bit like a new man.
Well, that is definitely a soundbite.
That's why I wrote it.
But okay, we're going to talk about this, I guess. So,
Well, I mean, I don't know what else to talk about. The fact of the matter is, every single person wants to know what I'm thinking about Ellen in this time.
People are asking all the time, and we're always not
like,
saying anything, so we're going to say something, it looks like.
All right, well, what are you going to say?
Well, I mean...
I'm glad she's in Africa.
I'm going to say that her show is off the air, and we're finding now people coming to us, and we're getting information about how she blocked you in ways that we had no idea.
Oh, please extrapolate.
Well, we have friends that are coming forward. What we're finding is that show was held over apparently your head as a tool that, you know, for going out. If you're on a show, if you're in a film, they got to go through the Ellen show to promote it.
Another thread that pulled Ellen DeGeneres into the spotlight came from something that exploded online years earlier: Pizzagate and a potential connection to Jeffrey Epstein.
One thing that we know happens is when something is true, a bunch of stuff gets attached to it that's both not true and also preposterous, that allows you to sort of dismiss all of it together. Yeah. There's a lot of people thought about that with Pizzagate. And there's some stuff that I saw online that was like George W. Bush was like involved in ritual sacrifice, or you know, things along those lines, like killing bees and eating people. Wild. Yeah. What do you think that stuff is?
I don't know. I don't.
Do you think it really occurs?
What I'll say is, this is a bad week to be a total Pizzagate denialist. You would feel a lot more comfortable about it a week ago than you would this week. I don't particularly focus, or I don't want to say care. I don't. My knowledge set on it is a lot more limited on it because I don't think it's a central crux of political influence. I don't know if it's kind of almost a inside joke in a certain way. Jeffrey Epstein himself in these emails is unbelievably trolly. You know, he'll say things that are the kind of, you know, shit posts you say to a buddy or your brother or something that you don't mean.
Right.
You know, it's kind of cheek. Yeah. But if you were a cynical, out to get you person who somehow obtained that text message, you'd say, "Oh, look, he said it." And so there's a lot of that going on. But the fact is I've seen a lot of images shared around the time period of when Pizzagate was popping off in 2016 that all I'll say is it doesn't look good or easily explainable. At the same time, a lot of those screenshots I have not, you know, for most of these, for the things I've posted about or that I'm talking about here, I've gone to the Justice Department file. I've looked up the file number, I've confirmed whether or not the screenshot is actually what it is. For those, I have not yet, but I wouldn't feel totally confident saying there's no there. But that's about as far as I can go on that.
When you say images, what are you talking about?
Well, there's a lot of, you know, if you look up pizza, for example, it's just as a keyword search, you'll see, or cheese or something. It looks like, you know, in the DOJ database for these new files, you'll see a lot of things of people talking about pizza in a way that
it seems like a code.
It's kind of impossible to
imagine it's actually just
to a pizza. It's about.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Do you think that's something that could possibly be true? And if it is, how much do you think Ellen is hiding? Let us know in the comments below.